let's talk about box plots. 5-number summary. For a set of data, the 5-number summary tells us the minimum, the first quartile, the median, the third quartile, and the maximum. Here's an example we've seen before. For the ages of the signers of the Declaration of Independence, this is the 5-number summary. Minimum was 26. There were a couple of guys who were 26 years old. First quartile, 36.5. Median, 44.5. Third quartile, 50. And maximum, 70. That was Ben Franklin. A box plot, or box and whisker diagram, is a graph that shows us what the 5-number summary looks like. So here would be an example of a box plot. Minimum, 26. First quartile, 36.5. Median, 44.5. Third quartile is here at 50. And then the maximum was 70. Some authors don't include outliers in the box plot. So, for example, if there was some extreme value, they might not even include it. The maximum might not necessarily be the maximum of all the data. It might be the maximum of all the data that are not outliers. Okay, so again, some authors don't include outliers in the box plot. If a value is more than 1.5 IQRs below the first quartile, Q1, let me remind you of what that is. Okay, the interquartile range is the distance from Q3 to Q1. Q3 in this case is 50, and Q1 was 36.5. So the interquartile range in this case would be the difference between those two, namely 13.5. Okay, so again, if a value is more than 1.5 IQRs below the first quartile, or more than 1.5 IQRs above the third quartile, then it is called an outlier. That's how we officially define an outlier. Some authors ignore outliers when labeling the maximum and minimum in the box plot. So again, here's what we mean by this. The interquartile range is 13.5. So 1.5 IQR, 1.5 interquartile ranges above the third quartile. Well, let's see. Since the interquartile range is 13.5, 1.5 times the interquartile range, that would be 20.25. So anything that's more than 20.25 above the third quartile, or anything that's less than 20.25 below the first quartile, that's officially an outlier. So if you have anything up here or anything down here, those are outliers. These are what we call inner fences. Okay, anything that's beyond there, anything that's beyond this inner fence is an outlier. Sometimes we don't draw on those inner fences. So in this case, the inner fences would be at 70.25 and 16.25. Now in our particular case, there were no official outliers. There was no signer of the Declaration of Independence who was older than 70.25 years or younger than 16.25 years. That'd be pretty young. Okay, but if, for example, if a signer of the Declaration were 80 years old, then we would show him, or presumably him and not her, we would show that person over here with a little dot. So that's the way we would represent an outlier. And again, the box plot wouldn't necessarily include that, because the box plot, when I say maximum, I mean maximum of all the points that are not outliers. So authors use different things. Some authors use dots, some authors use asterisks to represent outliers. Okay, besides inner fences, we also have outer fences, because, man, there are outliers, and then there are outliers. There are some extreme outliers. Here's the way we define an extreme or a far outlier. It's 3 interquartile ranges above the third quartile, or 3 interquartile ranges below the first quartile. So in this case, 3 IQR would be 40.5. Add that to the third quartile, and we get 90.5 for the outer fence. Subtract it from 36.5 and get -4.5. So basically, if you have a signer of the Declaration of Independence who hasn't been born yet and won't be born for 4.5 years, that person would definitely be a far outlier.